Brennan Lee Mulligan might just be the best role player alive. You see, there's something really special going on right now at the Critical Role studio. You know, everyone's favorite voice actors turned D&D megastars. Last night, the second episode of Chapter 2 of Candela Obscura, one of Critical Role's newest game projects and shows, aired. Candela Obscura being kind of a Call of Cthulhu-inspired investigative horror tabletop game. But you see, what I saw last night was almost more akin to theater, or dare I say it, even art, than a game of Dungeons & Dragons. Candela Obscura Chapter 2 is easily one of the best pieces of media that Critical Role has ever produced. Don't believe me? Just take a look at this scene where Brennan Lee Mulligan's character, Sean, a PTSD-riddled war veteran, reads a letter from his elderly mother who has been put in an insane asylum.
My baby boy, Sean. I miss you so. Your Auntie Beatrix tells me that you're still doing what you do best. Killing those who are different from you simply because you're told to. Following orders to eradicate people with families and loved ones, then letting those same people you choose to obey kill your brothers. And now I am here, in this wretched place, because of you, Sean. Because you didn't look out for our family. You let us down, and I cannot forgive you for that. With all my love, Mom.
Sean, a PTSD traumatized veteran, begins to have an episode of his post-traumatic stress, but he manages to pull himself out of it. However, he looks down, seeing in the letter he had just crumpled, but there it sits, untouched, unopened.
You're brought back, and you're holding a letter, unopened, in your hands.
My baby boy, Sean. I miss you so. Your Auntie Beatrix tells me that you're still doing what you do best. Saving the world.
Like, come on now, man. This is freaking art. Brennan, you absolute madman. Candela Obscura is a story that follows a group of investigators as they delve into the mysterious appearances of eldritch horrors and intrusions of kind of dark beings who manage to pierce the boundaries between their world and ours. The show takes place in the city of New Fair in the world, a turn-of-the-century society that several years prior to the events of our show emerged victorious in a long and bloody war with a neighboring state. Many of the surviving people from this war still deal with much of the trauma that they experienced of it in a kind of World War I-esque fashion. Now, Candela Obscura Chapter 2, the show that I watched last night, featured some of the best role-playing and just acting I think I've ever seen from a tabletop RPG show, and largely I think this is due to the extremely talented cast from the Critical Role team, Travis Willingham and Marisha Ray. Travis playing the ex-Army Lieutenant Nathaniel Trapp, while Marisha playing everyone's favorite kooky aunt, Beatrix Monroe. But really, I think it's the performance from the others, not from the Critical Role team, that really left an impact on me. One returning guest, Luis Carousel, who plays war veteran Marion Kalady, newcomer actress and voice actress Zara Faisal, who plays the curious surgeon Jenna Basser, and finally, best boy, the best role player alive, Brennan Lee Mulligan, who plays the trauma-stricken veteran Sean Finnerty. This whole cast being tied together with the GM, co-creator of Candela Obscura, Spencer Stark. Now, immediately, a good portion of the Critical Role audience probably isn't even going to give Candela Obscura a chance, let alone Candela Obscura Chapter 2. That's because it doesn't feature everyone's favorite dungeon master, Matt Mercer. Unfortunately, this is just how a large section of the Critical Role audience are. If Matt Mercer isn't game mastering a game, they probably won't tune in. Something that makes me very sad, because Candela Obscura, especially Chapter 2, is easily some of the best content Critical Role has ever made. Like I said though, Candela Obscura Chapter 2 almost feels like I'm watching something more like theater, something more akin to like the radio plays of the early 20s and 30s than an actual Dungeons & Dragons or tabletop role-playing game. A lot of the kind of sub-story in Chapter 2 focusing on the trauma that many of our characters, being former soldiers, go through in their daily lives. Now, when I say Candela Obscura is like I'm watching theater, a large part of it has to do with the fact that at times it almost feels scripted. You see, when a Dungeons & Dragons game is just getting started, oftentimes players take a long time to develop the character that they're going to play. Candela Obscura is a very short production series. Each each of the chapters only having a couple of episodes. Because of this, our cast have a very deep understanding on the characters that they're playing. It's almost more akin as if they're playing a very fleshed out, well-developed character almost from a movie or from a play. Each of our characters in our group all have interlocking backstory and history with one another. Travis, Brennan, and Luis's character all serving in the military all together under Travis's character as a lieutenant. They share this bond of soldiers and war with one another, as well as the trauma together. You combine this really fleshed out, like, detailed knowledge of a player character with the fact that Spencer Stark's DM style puts a lot of onus and freedom on players to decide things in this world. This DM style, I think, is something unique and interesting, and is one of the main reasons why the story of Candela Obscura Chapter 2 is so good, and while the role-playing and acting is so good, it's because he's allowing the players and their knowledge of their characters and their improv to make impacts on the world. Oftentimes, he will just completely hand it over to the player, or maybe a more traditional dungeon master might describe how a player feels or might describe a situation to a player. He puts the onus on the player themselves, allowing them to describe the events that might happen to their character from their point of view.
Go to patch him up, grab my bag, and my hand. There's something wrong with my hand. Pull off my glove. And where the tips of my fingers on my left hand used to be are little tendrils of blue flame. It's very hot. And I'm horrified, but then I'm fascinated.
It's very obvious that they went over these backstories and developed them with one another, but it allows them to tell a much more complicated, deeper story that really impacts you emotionally, more than, like, basically any other role-playing game that I think have seen played, maybe except for EXU Calamity. Of course, the through line there between Critical Role's other miniseries, EXU Calamity, and their D&D World of Exandria, and this game of Candela Obscura is Brennan Lee Mulligan.
But I was right!
I don't know what more I can say about this guy, man. His performance last night in Candela Obscura Chapter 2 was just absolutely breathtaking. His character is dark, serious, and complicated. The man struggling with his own trauma, the horrible deeds that he's done when he was off to war, trying to balance this morality of the horrible deeds he did with the war for trying to justify it with saving his country, his people, his friends. The fact that he very much just seemed like this normal man, just a normal guy being thrust into a horrible, just fucked up situation.
I just wish people would stop telling me they fucking understand. Everyone wants to take care of me. I don't know if it's obvious enough to you, B. I'm doing a lot of the taking care of around here. The last thing I need is anyone to come fucking take care of me. We're gonna get Ma out of Gray Slate. We're gonna kill whatever this thing is running around. We're gonna put its head on the desk of whoever Draven's direct report is, and then I'm done. So let's just go take care of business and stop asking me how I'm doing.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
It's genuinely just amazing, but one of the things that I think really surprised me most about this show was the performance from newcomer Zara Faisal. I don't know what her experience with tabletop or role-playing games is. I don't know if she has any experience at all before this game of Candela Obscura. What I will say is that this lady is an absolute monster. I think one of the best things about Candela Obscura is you don't need to know anything about the mechanics of the game to enjoy the story that is unfolding in front of you. Like I said, the mechanics very much take a back step, especially when you compare it to a game like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know what more to say about this show. If you like horror, if you like theater, if you like suspense and kind of dark, spooky vibes with amazing acting and the best boy Brennan Lee Mulligan, then what are you doing? Go watch Candela Obscura Chapter 2. Hands down, some of the best work that Critical Role has ever done. I don't even really consider it a kind of tabletop role-playing game that's being watched. Like I said, it feels more like I'm watching theater, like I'm watching a kind of improv, deep, dramatic theater performance being played out, where there just happen to be some tabletop rules that help decide certain instances in the story itself. Besides Exandria Limited Calamity, Candela Obscura Chapter 2 is easily like top 3 best content that the Critical Role production team has ever made, from the top to bottom, from the story to the vibe, from the cast to Brennan Lee Mulligan just being absolutely amazing and just putting in one of the best shifts for a role-playing show ever. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. This guy does not miss. Every single thing that this dude puts his hands on turns to gold. He is the best role-player improv actor in this space, hands down. And on top of that, he happens to be one of the best like dungeon masters as well. Please, please, please go watch Candela Obscura Chapter 2. It breaks my heart that this show is not going to be nearly as popular as the Critical Role's Dungeons & Dragons campaign, because oh my god, is it amazing. So always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Click on screen now to check out more other Critical Role in D&D content. As always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Drink your water, hug your mother. Until next time, peace, love, Adu.